Hey, business owners, does your customer service feel like a black hole draining your resources? Well, you're not alone. Many businesses struggle to see their customer service departments as anything other than a necessary expense. Imagine the frustration of pouring time, money, and effort into a service that doesn't pay off. It's not just an annoyance, it's a roadblock to your growth. Well, join us on today's Profit with a Plan, where my guest, James O'Brien, will reveal the game changing strategies to transform your customer service from cost center to profit center. Learn how to leverage your customer interactions to drive revenue, create loyal advocates for your brand. Don't miss this opportunity and join us on Profit with a Plan podcast. Entrepreneurs, are you trying to make bigger profits in your small business? If you're like most of us business owners, increasing your profitability is always on your mind, and you're probably looking for ways to grow your revenue while growing your company as well. Well, you found a podcast that shares ideas to help you do just that. I'm Marcia Riner, known as the Profit Booster, and I'm a business growth strategist. I've helped tons of small business owners to establish and implement a tangible plan that guarantees increased profitability, guides your growth, and plans for your future exit. Because building a highly profitable and sale-ready business creates a win-win scenario. That's more money now and a windfall when it's time to let go. And I want to share strategies that I've learned with you on today's Profit with a Plan podcast. But before we get started, I have a special treat for you. If you ever wanted to supercharge your business and avoid profit plateaus, operational headaches, and growth roadblocks, well, I've created a brand new Profit Booster playbook just for you. You'll uncover 3 essential strategies and the quick ways to take action on them. Now, this is not a single-page report. It's filled with impactful strategies, actionable steps, and expert guidance to elevate your profits. So go download this playbook, and it's for free at boostingprofit.com. All right, I'm excited to have my guest on today. James O'Brien has spent over a decade founding, building, and raising capital for early-stage startups across a variety of industries. He is the co-founder and COO of Ducky, an AI customer support company that's specifically designed to help support teams perform at their best and maintain a human touch. AI and human touch? That's crazy. In prior roles, James has worked the frontline support, build, and manage support teams and led early business development functions to millions of annual revenue. Apart from the land of startups, James is a singer and a fledgling piano player. He moved down to Nashville, Tennessee over a decade ago and is singing in a band. Ooh, we got a rock star here. James, welcome to Profit with a Plan podcast.
Hey, Marcia, thank you so much. It's great to be here.
I'm excited. This is a great topic. So, piano playing, singing man, huh? When did you start being a musician?
Well, I was really young. Let's see, I started singing, I think like a lot of people, in choir when I was probably 6 or 7 years old, and pretty quickly, tried to play guitar, tried to play piano, found it to be really challenging. Maybe I was just lazy and didn't have the dedication it took to learn an instrument. But yeah, so I started way back when, and then continued to do musical theater. Eventually did a lot of a cappella, and then moved into singing in a band in college. And we all went to the same college. And then one of our guys was like, "Hey, I have a cool opportunity to work at Reba McEntire's studio down in Nashville, Tennessee. Do y'all want to come down and cut some records?" And we said yes. We signed a lease, sight unseen, and I haven't been back home since. No, I'm kidding. I go home a lot, but still down in Nashville.
How exciting. So what's the name of your band?
The band used to be called the Joint Chiefs. Unfortunately, the band is now defunct.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, let's get you on
It's
like
okay.
America's Got Talent or, something along those
Yeah,
lines.
I get to, Nashville is such a musical city. Like I still get to play with friends all the time. We still get to play little like block party gigs and, bar gigs. So it's still a wonderful outlet.
And it feeds your ego, right?
Yeah, that's the only reason I do it.
How great. Okay, well, I won't ask you to sing. So this is fantastic. I'm so glad you're on, because this is something that when I'm looking at profitability with my clients, And we're looking at ways, what lever can we pull that can add a benefit later on. They're always looking at customer services as that necessity, right? You got to have it. It's a cost center, it's not a profit center. So I'm so excited to have you come on and talk about ways that AI can improve that, and ways that business owners aren't looking at the value of your customer experience in a way. So I'm really excited for this conversation. So now you shared with us in the introduction how you got into the space just by osmosis and growing in the companies. But what are some of the things that today's business owners can really look at when they're looking at their customer service, right? What's the first step we want to take when looking at our customer service experience?
I think it's similar to how we think about most things, or probably should think about most things as business owners, and maybe even just as humans in general, is like, what is your goal? What do you want to achieve? And I would encourage people not just to say something very blasé and high level, such as like, I want to lower my costs, right? Like that can be a factorial that goes into it, but very often I think you have to be a lot more strategic and honest with yourself about what your business is, what you're good at, what your customers want, and then that can shape the picture of what you want to achieve. And I'll give an example. Very, very often when companies get bigger, right, like they're very willing to take what I would refer to as like a non-customized chatbot approach, right? They
Ah,
know they can put a chatbot that can prevent tickets, emails from getting from customers to their support team, which means that their support team, let's just say, has 1,000 tickets that come in a week, and all of a sudden they only have 750, right? On paper, that's an awesome trade-off. Now, what typically happens is, I'm sure a lot of people listening and yourself will not be surprised to hear, is that the chatbot doesn't do a great job. It makes
but
people mad. It gives wrong answers. There's a whole bunch of things. And to be very clear, like, so everybody knows, I can call it my bias up front. Like, we build tooling specifically for human beings to do their job better. We don't do chatbots right now. But I'm not anti-chatbot. I think it just
but
requires a high degree of honesty with what you're trying to achieve when you put in a solution such as that.
But you know what, really, in reality, when remember the phone tree that used to be popular? Oh, press one, press seven,
Oh,
plus eight,
yeah,
plus two,
I
plus
was on
three,
one
plus
earlier
four,
today.
right? Which everybody hated. And then now we go into the website to get our answer, to chat, to have these things. But then you end up with just this like, I just want to talk to somebody. And I think that's the missing connection.
Yeah, it's a trade-off again, like, and it requires you looking at your business very honestly. To go back to the previous example, when you're a large company, right, like you have very advanced data science and analytics practices, and you can say, look, I put a chatbot in place. It reduces my ticket volume by 25%, but
That's a huge thing.
but it also increases my churn, right? Like people leaving and not wanting to work with me by say 10%. That's
Mm.
just a math equation. If you're willing to make that trade-off, great, do it. But if you are, like probably a lot of us listening, or speaking in my case right now, you're smaller and you want to make sure that you give every customer the opportunity to become your customer, and you don't want to, make them angry and push them away just because they couldn't speak to a human being. So if you know that your customers, especially if you sell something complex, or it's consultative or something of that nature, right? Like the likelihood of anybody buying off of a website is very low to begin with, and they're
Exactly.
there because there's a human touch. So
Right.
just recognize that and then put in different strategies that encourages the human touch, because very often that's what you or your team is good at.
Right. And I think that's really what, when we talk about differentiation, right? There's one, I promise you, audience, you are not the only one that does what you do, right? So there's competition in there, and what somebody wants, what the buyers want, is they want to feel like they're understood, that they have a direct chain of, or communication lane, that they can get their questions answered and talk to somebody, even though we're in such a digital environment that everything has to be on the internet. They still want to talk to you, right? They want to make sure you're a live company, and who they're investing their money and time with is really there.
Yeah, I mean, again, it just totally depends on the business, right? Like e-commerce is a great example. A lot of people don't ever want to talk to somebody when they just need to do a refund or a
Right.
return, right?
Right.
And the good news is that those are very defined workflows and steps that chatbots, AI are really good at, right?
Mm.
Like you can put in a solution in place that actually meets your customers where they are, and being able to, exact a refund in 30 seconds or less. via AI. That's awesome. Go do it. Right. But again, if your people want to talk to somebody or they bought, a multi-thousand-dollar thing, like my wife owns a yoga studio in Nashville and they just bought a sauna,
Oh,
right? Like if they
yep.
wanted to return that sauna, it's not going to be a 30-second process. You gotta figure out the truck, you gotta figure out somebody to come box it up. Like there's a lot of steps and it's also a lot of money at stake. So
Mm.
there's just again, just consider everything you know about your customers and maybe even ask them, right? Like, how do you want to interact with my team? What did you not get enough of in your last customer interaction? And those can really guide your hand in terms of making your choices.
You know what? That's an amazing answer to go back to your customers and ask them, right? I mean, they're the ones paying the bill. And a lot of times we just assume, oh, we've got to cut all these things out and go to those chat bots, right? When maybe your customer doesn't want them, or the opposite, maybe your customer wants them. They don't want to pick up the phone and talk to you and say, ugh, you know. So I love that. I think we don't survey enough. And when you get the value opportunity to talk to your customer and ask them what their preference is, you know, why not do it?
Yeah, it's all about, I mean, just like so many things, you'll hear me say this a bunch. Like it's all about how you do it, right? There's a
Mm.
school of thought, and I believe a book as well called The Mom Test. And
Oh,
it's essentially getting at, if they're saying that most product teams, most people who interview customers for Intel don't do a great job because they're asking things in a way that encourages someone to just give you positive feedback. To be like, yeah, it's great. And then they might say, like, but there's this one little thing, but overarchingly, it's awesome, right? And sure, that can feel good, but it's not necessarily helpful signal, right? It's like not necessarily helpful information. So when you survey, whether it's written, whether it's spoken, it doesn't really matter what the medium is. It's really all about how am I asking questions that not only invite somebody to give me honest feedback, but sometimes asks about, in software, we like to say, don't ask somebody the feature they want to see, ask them the problem they want to solve,
okay.
because they might want to solve the same problem as you, but their idea, without having all of the knowledge that you have about your software for how they want to accomplish it, is actually not helpful, nor might it be scalable to a bunch of different customers.
Wow, really, really good on that one. All right, so now that we've kind of gotten away from, the question that we had started with, which was what are some of the things that are in the way, and how can we change those? Let's kind of come back to that a little bit. We've decided through asking our customers, do you want to pick up the phone and talk to me? Is it a bigger project? We're figuring out, do you want chatbots? Do you not want chatbots and AI? Do you need to talk to a customer? What would be the next thing that we want to look at?
Yeah, so there's, I would say, two categories. So if you are searching to do more of like an automated approach, it's very important, as I'm sure we all know, right? Like we capture a ton of data. There's a bunch of interesting information that we never put our hands on or never make use of.
Mm.
So it's really important to, and don't try to do everything at once, right? Like the way that we like to do things is, hey, we look at all your workflows or, a subsample of your workflows and we say, cool, is your team spending 10% of their time on this specific workflow? Right? If you have a team of 10 people, that's one person's entire world. Can we automate that, give your team 10% of their time back, and then we can look at solving other things incrementally, right? So all I'm trying to say is don't bite it off everything at once. Pick something that has a meaningful impact, do it well. It's usually not as complicated as you might think, but just make sure that you create those downstream workflows or getting the data in the right place so that the new system you put in place actually communicates with your existing systems and operations. The
Mm.
other option is to take a more personal approach, to take a more human-centric approach, I would say. And again, to tell everybody very honestly, this is what we do, so I'm biased. But the way that we've built our software at Ducky is to just try to be very honest about the capabilities of what AI can do right now, the way that customers actually want to interact with most businesses, and then also the way that businesses, and more specifically customer support leaders, want AI to play into their strategy,
Mhm.
right? Again, if you're at a huge company, a lot of them are very okay with cutting 20% headcount, and that sounds great. But most of them are like, look, everybody's scared about AI coming for their jobs, right? Customer support is a very inherently supportive and empathetic culture, right? So they want to support their teams. They want to give people the power of AI, and very often they have, the pressure coming down from executives like do something with AI. but they can do something like implementing Ducky or another AI solution that is specifically designed to find information faster, give you tips and tricks, to write answers that you can then correspond with customers with, such that the human being is still driving the ship. AI is just taking a lot of the heavy lifting on, like, having 19 tabs open and having to flip between all of them to do your research. It's like,
Right.
that's unnecessary. AI can do that for you.
I love it. I love it. So it's really taking the advantage of AI and making the customer agent
Mm.
more proficient in what they're doing, more efficient in what they're
Yeah.
doing, and to be able to add that personal touch to it on top of it. So you're not removing the human being, you're adding value to it through AI. And you're not, yeah, because I think that removal of humans, just the AI and just the chatbot just limits everything and makes it an icky experience for the consumer. So having that opportunity in there. So when we're looking at the workflows that we have to do, I mean, obviously with standard operating procedures and trying to automate things as much as possible, which is the way of operations management these days, what are some of the ones we really want to do? The repeatable efforts or, like you said, the research like Ducky is doing?
I would actually say that that's one and the same.
Okay.
It's kind of one thing I think about a lot. It's kind of a square and rectangle thing, right? Like every square is a rectangle, but not every rectangle is a square. Um, Knowledge and researching, the industry average on how long it takes a customer support person to find the right information in order to then respond to a customer ticket is about 15 minutes.
Oh,
So
wow.
if you were to take a system like ours and put it in place, you would end up reducing that to almost instantaneous. Right. So all of a sudden you get five pieces of information, seven pieces of information that says, look, James, these are all the things I think you need to know in order to solve this ticket. You don't need to go open 9 tabs. You don't need to go, we like to refer to it as context switching, from one software tool to another software tool to another software tool. So that is a repetitious process. Now it's a little bit different in that it requires intuition and it requires like tribal knowledge of your business to
Right.
ascertain what is accurate, what is relevant, and what isn't. So research and knowledge I like to think of people as librarians in this regard. It's not about knowing something, it's about knowing how to find something, and it's about being able to ascertain what information is real, what's relevant, and what's helpful.
And I
Now,
think
if we,
that's,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's super important because these people are on the front line.
Yeah,
And if we
yeah.
can make them more knowledgeable and get it, not the, oh, my internet's not working. Well, have you tried to turn it off and turn it back on again? Which is the basic solution that's played
Which
back
uh,
to
which
me.
which honestly more people should try
Yeah,
if we're being
exactly.
real.
But I mean, having that, when we think about, so first of all, like getting a new client, new customer acquisition is probably one of the most expensive pieces of your business, right? The
Mhm.
marketing and the enticement and the attraction of the customer. But customer retention and getting them to rebuy is all done by having good customer experience and customer service. So if you can shorten that time when a customer calls with a problem from 15 minutes and having them go, hang on, let me ask this 5, 6, 7 questions, right? And have them all laid out for you. That to me is like, okay, one and done, I'm out. I got my problem solved and it took me just a couple of minutes instead of the 15 minutes of, oh, did you turn it off? Yes. Did you clear your cache? Yes. Did you, I mean, going through the list of things that would seem, to hold us back and not give the experience we want. So I think that
Yeah,
AI is really huge.
retention is an interesting topic, because it's a whole lifetime. It's a long tail of work that's essentially then catalyzed by a single instance, right?
Mhm.
It's like just everything you just said right now, right? Like let's just say I buy a 1 year contract, and for the 9 months that I've been using this to date, were my customer support interactions great? Did they reach out? Did we have touch base calls? Did they care about me? And did they, when I gave feedback or like reported bugs, did they take care of them? Did they build new features that I wanted? Like those are all things that can be programmatically or automatically, I wouldn't say accomplished for all of them, but at least kept track of, right? Like
Mhm.
there are systems coming out right now where it can say, hey, like, go reach out to Marcia today because you haven't talked to her in a month. Like, make sure you touch base with her. Or this is, Marcia's risk of leaving your business or not renewing their contract. So there are ways to kind of keep track of that as you go. But then the one instance is like, hey, are you going to renew or are you not going to renew? And hopefully you don't ever go into that contract, or sorry, that
Not knowing.
conversation, and the answer is a surprise, right?
Right.
Ideally, you've done all these things and you can go back and look at your communications, and you may have some semblance of AI that can give you a quick scorecard on how the conversation is going to go. And then when the conversation then becomes, not, hey, Marcia is so upset, she's totally leaving, but Marcia has been happy. I know she's happy. Obviously, there are extenuating circumstances we can't always control for, but then it becomes an opportunity to base, to build on the foundation that you have with them and say, look, we're rolling out this new thing, or you have 5 other people in your org that don't have a seat right now. We really think they could benefit from it, and this is why. And then I can curtail that narrative to you specifically, because I know a lot about you and I've cared and I've paid attention throughout the way, or throughout the process of us working together. And hopefully that's a good way to like pull all that information over a really long period of time, such that you can go into that conversation prepared and ready with like very specific, people say like, know your customer, right? Like, I know that's a finance thing, but it's also just like a product methodology, which is if you go in and you pitch something super tone deaf that they're never going to need, you go from probably renewing to being like, yeah, these guys don't really care about me, right? Like, unless it's this one thing that I absolutely need, I might go find somebody else. So it's just about, again, paying attention, being intentional, and like ensuring that you're actually looking at what a specific customer needs, how they've used it, what they might want to use in the future, and then just validating it with them. Ask them, make it a conversation. Don't make it a sales pitch.
And you never would have had the opportunity if you did not have the customer experience model and the customer service team that was there taking care of the customer throughout those 10 years. So a lot of businesses will go, okay, I'm going to spend a whole lot of money on marketing. I'm going to get the customer, I'm going to sell it, and I'm done, right? Where in reality, that's where everything starts.
Mhm.
And if you take that customer experience, once they've already paid you, you've already made your money. You could walk away, but by keeping and engaging that customer, you're going to get repeat purchases or renewals on the contract. You're going to get upsell opportunities. You're going to get cross-sell opportunities. And all of these take the lifetime value of that customer exponentially, from a one-time purchase, one and done, buy, see you later, to 5 or 6 products in the suite of products that you can offer eventually. Small companies have less products that, do it, but it's like, boom, this becomes a cost center to a profit center because you took that opportunity to take care of the customer after the transaction.
Yeah, I'll say 2 things here. The first is that, there are a million different ways to do marketing and acquisition and things of that nature.
Exactly.
My
But that's what
personal
everybody focuses on.
Yeah, my personal belief is one of 2 things for this first point. The first is that it's way easier to keep a customer than it is to find a new one. And the second is that if you do your job right, the best catalyst you can have for landing new business is testimonials and social proof from your previous business. Right. So taking care of people and having good customer experience and service, sure, it might feel like a cost center at certain times, but it's actually like the baseline maintainer of all of your customers' experience, and then the ability for you to then leverage, and work together to have them as evangelists for your business.
I love it.
You've got a happy customer, right? When somebody else calls in and you're working on a big contract and they're like, hey, can I talk to, like a stakeholder at one of your existing customers? And you ping that person and they're like, 100%, you've made our life better. I'm happy. I'm happy to stand as a testimonial for you. So that's one. And then the other thing, we talked about this a little bit on our pre-call a couple weeks ago, which is that, there's when you make customer support people faster, right? That's not actually, and what I mean by that is like if you let them go from 8 hours a day to 6 hours a day of like working on tickets, that doesn't necessarily give everybody great benefit, right? Like if you only have a specific number of tickets, you don't necessarily need to have your people spending less time on those tickets if there's nothing else to do. So that's where we go into what I think is a more strategic topic, which is like if you went from 6 hours, sorry, 8 hours of work a day for one person, and now all of a sudden they only have 6 hours because the AI is helping them move faster. What are they going to do with that time? And the reason that I bring it up right now is because that's when they get a chance to do more high level things, be more strategic, pay more attention to customers. And I don't just mean customer experience, like caring for customers and being proactive. I mean, looking really, really intentionally at the information that's coming in from folks,
Mm.
the feature requests they're making, the bugs they're reporting, the things they're saying about you, about your business, about your mission values, your pricing. It doesn't matter. And then most of that information just goes into the void, right? But you have this group of people that's like not only the backbone support folks of your business, but also the people who interact with your customer more than anyone. And then all the information that lives inside their head or lives inside your ticketing system generally doesn't make it to the rest of the organization. And I'll give an example. So when we were building our company, we talked to we talked to a lot of people through the years, but specifically to validate the idea, we talked to like 150 support teams or so. And one thing that we always asked was like, do you do a voice of the customer report? And what that means for those who don't know is like once a quarter, once a week, it doesn't matter, whatever your cadence is. Do I look at the things our customers are saying and the interactions they're having with our support team and our folks to say, like, how are they feeling? What are they asking for? How are we doing? What can we do better? And the industry standard for doing that voice of the customer report is literally just pick 5 tickets at random and be like, cool, that's what our customers are saying. But you're leaving so much information on the table. And the good news is with a lot of these AI solutions today, you can take all of that information, you can find you can find trends, and then you can use those trends to actually have a really comprehensive understanding of what people are saying about you, what they want, and then you can go put those in action to better improve, your ability to build new products that people actually want, to sell them more efficiently, to make more money, all that good stuff.
Wow, that's really impressive because, like you said, if you're working 8 hours and you're just trying to get to the next customer call, right? If you can breathe a little bit because there's only 6 hours of work, you can actually give better customer service. You can take the time and then you can analyze the data, which is like so much more value to the business as a whole. And then I've had a couple of guests on that talking about data analytics lately
Mm.
and how to visualize it and how to do it because leadership can't make proper decisions until they have the data coming in, and your customer service team is the data center, right? They're talking to your clients and your customers going, why did this, what's your problem? Are you happy? Did you do this? It just makes so much more sense that the dots all start to connect along. And if they have a little bit more time, they can improve their processes. They can breathe a little bit more. What do we complain about the most when you go to a doctor these days, right? You sat out in the waiting room for a long time. My
Your hands are
appointment was at
cold.
10 a.m., right? I didn't get into the waiting room until 10:30. I sat on the little bench until 10:45 or 10:50. The nurse comes in, takes a bunch of stuff. The doctor's in there for 30 seconds and then walks on. And I paid how much? Did they answer anything that I really had? And that rush to get people through and out so you can work on the next one, I think kills that the opportunities that you as business owners can have just by taking an opportunity to slow down. And your AI can actually give you that time back by automating the systems, correct?
Very correct.
Love it. This is brilliant. So now when we're talking about these kind of things, using something like your software Ducky, do I need a whole tech team to do it, or is it something that a smaller company could actually implement into their systems without having a whole tech team or 6 months of integration to get it set up?
Yeah, so the high level answer, not on us specifically, but on the general industry, is it totally depends, right? Like, and again, this is where just make sure you do your research, make sure you ask these questions, and make sure you're picking something that you feel like is actually advantageous to the way you
Okay.
do business, and it's not going to require you to dedicate a ton of resources for a 6-month period, especially if you're small, right? Like that's just
Yeah,
not something that
exactly.
most of us small
Which
businesses can actually
which
accomplish.
implementing a lot of these, when you get into these technical systems, for, an ERP, looking at it's a 6-month on ramp, and you're like,
Yeah.
wow, I have to spend how much? And I still and it's 6 months until I get going, you
Not to
know.
mention, you then very often have to dedicate an ongoing resource to maintain it, right? That's one
Right.
thing that a lot of people forget to ask. As it pertains to our solution or some other solutions in the market, of which there are, again, a lot of AI tools and customer support these days, a lot of them are pretty plug and play. So, as an example, if you did want to go spin up a chatbot, there are a number of solutions where you could just say, hey, here's where all of my help center resources are in Zendesk, and they'll have a chatbot ready for you in a couple minutes, right? Like it's very plug and play. Now,
If
again,
that's what you want.
if that's what you want. And again, you've got to, AI is hard, machine learning is hard, right? Like if they don't give you the ability to essentially fine tune it and tweak it over time, you just kind of get what you get. And again, if that's what you want, it's all good. There's a lot of strategic value to that for a lot of folks. For situations like ours, we do typically work with folks anywhere between like a month and 2 months for onboarding
Okay.
because
But that's
we connect all of their information. We then essentially do like a QA analysis. We onboard a small subset of users who are very good about giving us feedback, and then we tweak the system to make sure that we get like a substantial increase in its functionality and productivity for the team that they're working with. But to answer your other question more concretely, at least as it pertains to us, it's very, very little technical work for the team. So like we use, for the most part, what's referred to as O authorization to log in to get access to the data that exists in your existing tools like Zendesk, like Notion, like Linear, like Asana, Airtable. We have a bunch of integrations that we work with. And all that really requires is that somebody who has a sufficient level of sysadmin permission logs into Ducky, says, yep, log in here, great, it's done. Log in here, great, it's done. And then we crunch the data, we build the system, and then we work together to test it.
Wow. See, that's the stress of a lot of business owners. They're like, wow, this is going to be difficult, right? You know, even though we can see that it's going to be easier at the end, the difficulty in the front often gets the Heisman and says, we just don't have the resources or time to do that right now. And if it can be done simply with that little effort on our side, then we're more apt to be able to implement it into the system. And honestly, it sounds like it's going to be amazing for even getting the buy-in of the customer service representatives to use the system instead of them going, I don't like this, it's too hard, right? So it just sounds to me like it's an easier implementation process without flipping the business up on its head, right?
That was our goal. I mean, like we're an earlier stage business, right? Like we've only been in market for a couple months now. We're starting to get customers, which has been wonderful. And the what we've found from people is that they are very often the Heisman, as you said, is based off of a pretty incomplete set of information, right? Like people are just kind of allergic to
Right.
software that's not like, oh, cool, I can download and try it right now. Great. And then the other thing I wanted to share is that we specifically built our software to do what you just said, right? So like when we were starting this business, we were like, cool, do we create a new customer support platform in its entirety? The problem with that is that then we're going to these companies and we're saying, look, that
Change
system that your entire business operates on, rip it
change
out. Yeah, rip it
it.
out. We're better. So where we came out was like, look, we're just going to have Ducky essentially work alongside people. So in this case, I'll give a very specific example. I just keep talking about Zendesk because most people know Zendesk. Is if you're working in Zendesk, Ducky is a Chrome extension that literally sits right next to the workspace you're very familiar
Right.
with. And then when you open an email from a customer, Ducky says, hey, here's all the relevant information that you need to know. Here's how I think you should respond to this. And then the customer support person is in the driver's seat. So they can say, cool, I'm going to use that. I'm not going to use that. And then instead of you switching the way that they work, you're really just adding like one additional thing that, again, hopefully is creating a lot of
Enhances.
efficiency and isn't making their life, is making the context switching less instead of the context switching more.
Love it. Okay. James, you've given us so much juicy information here to think about how to really turn that cost center into a profit center and to free up your space, the data. I mean, everything's just all integrating into a way that just makes total sense. if you're dealing with a lot of customers and you have tickets, right? If you have people, your customers calling in, then this would be a great solution. So where can listeners find out more about you and Ducky?
We pretty simple, everybody. Ready? Get a pen. It is Ducky, DUCKY.ai. And I think the best way to learn a little bit more about Ducky, and also just to see what a system, an AI system that augments human capacity instead of attempts to replace it. You'll see a big demo button right on our homepage. If you click on that and give us your email, you'll be able to see Ducky in action. You don't have to call me. I won't put any pressure on you. You can see what it looks like, and if it resonates, if you have questions, if you want to check it out, you can either reach out through our website, or you'll get an email immediately that allows you to book a call with me.
I love it. I love it. I mean, this kind of stuff needs to be seen. You've explained it pretty well, and you've explained tremendously the value of what it could do and the legs that it could support within the company in multiple different directions. So I think it's definitely worth trying and checking out, especially if it's in the low risk or low, like I don't have to jump on a call and be sold. So I like
Yeah,
that.
I hope everybody's gotten the vibe. I'm not much of a force it down your throat salesman. I think the best way to build partnerships is just to be very honest with expectations and goals, and to educate. And if we're not your solution, that's totally fine. But I'd also love to know what is, because it lets us build better and build more.
I love it. I love it. Adding value. I like it. All right, listeners, I hope you found a couple ideas to put into your business that will help you be more profitable. And with the way that I've explained multiple times that client retention is just as important, if not more important, than customer acquisition, this is a great tool to be able to add into your toolbox, to be able to simplify processes, add value to the team that's already doing work. I would highly encourage you to give it a try, check it out, see how you could implement that into your business to make you be more profitable. And as I mentioned before, if you want to supercharge your business, go download my new Profit Booster Playbook with 3 profit strategies and the actionable steps that you can use to make this your most profitable year ever. Go grab it for free at boostingprofit.com. And James and I would love to hear your questions. If you're having a challenge or you're like, wow, how do you take your customer experience and how do you work from, 10 people down to 8 people, or, whatever you have as a challenge, hit us up in the comments and James and I will give you some feedback on it. And while you're at it, please subscribe. You don't want to miss next week's show. You can always catch Profit with a Plan every Tuesday on your favorite podcast player. We're looking forward to more great profitable information on next week's show. So until then, make your plans and profit with them. Thank you so much, James.
Thank you, Marcia.